I never thought I'd be the person writing one of these posts, but here I am at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, finally ready to tell this absolutely insane story. Fair warning, this is long, messy, and involves more family drama than an entire season of reality TV. But people keep telling me I need to share this, so buckle up. For context, I'm a 28-year-old woman living in Charleston, South Carolina. I work as a pediatric nurse, and up until 6 months ago, I thought I had a pretty normal family. Sure, my older sister Vanessa and I weren't exactly best friends, but I never imagined she was capable of what she did. This whole situation has completely shattered my view of my family, my relationship with my parents, and honestly, my faith in people in general. Let me start from the beginning. 2 years ago, I met my now husband, James, at a hospital charity event. He's an architect, ridiculously kind, and honestly way out of my league if you ask me. We clicked immediately, and after a year of dating, he proposed on a sunset boat tour around Charleston Harbor. It was perfect. Intimate, romantic, just us in the water and the most beautiful ring I'd ever seen. The moment I announced our engagement at family dinner, I should have known something was off. My mom was thrilled, my dad gave James the typical protective father speech, but Vanessa? Vanessa got this weird look on her face. Not happy, not sad, just this calculating expression that I'd seen before when we were kids and she wanted something I had. But I brushed it off. We were adults now, right? Wrong. So incredibly wrong. James and I started planning immediately. We both wanted something elegant but not over the top, around 150 guests, good food, great music, and a venue that meant something to us. After months of searching, we found it. The Magnolia Estate, this absolutely stunning historic plantation-style venue about 30 minutes outside Charleston. It had these massive oak trees dripping with Spanish moss, a gorgeous white mansion, manicured gardens, and this romantic chapel on the property. The second we walked onto the grounds, we both knew. This was it. There was just one problem. The venue was booked solid for the next 18 months. Weddings, corporate events, everything. We were crushed. But then, almost like fate, they called us 2 weeks later. Someone had cancelled their date, September 14th, and asked if we wanted it. We didn't even hesitate. We put down our deposit that same day. $5,500, non-refundable, and started planning everything around that date. We sent save the dates 4 months in advance. We booked our photographer, our caterer, our florist, our DJ, everything. I found my dress at a boutique in downtown Charleston, this gorgeous lace-line gown that made me cry when I put it on. James got fitted for his tux. My bridesmaids ordered their dresses in a dusty rose color that looked amazing with the venue's aesthetic. We planned our honeymoon to Italy. Everything was falling into place perfectly. Then, 3 months before our wedding, Vanessa announced her engagement. Now, let me tell you about Vanessa. She's 31, works in pharmaceutical sales, and has always been what my mom calls ambitious. What she actually is competitive to a toxic degree. Growing up, if I got an A, she needed an A+. If I made the volleyball team, she had to be captain of the soccer team. If I got a car for my 16th birthday, she lobbied our parents until she got a newer one. You get the picture. Her fiancé, Derek, seemed nice enough. They'd been dating for about 8 months when he proposed. Quick, but hey, when you know, right? I was genuinely happy for her. I told her congratulations, asked about the proposal, offered to help her start planning. I even suggested she might want to check out some of the venues we'd looked at that didn't work out for us. That's when things got weird. 2 weeks after her engagement, Vanessa called me crying. She said she and Derek wanted to get married soon, like really soon, because Derek's grandmother was sick and might not make it another year. She'd fallen in love with the Magnolia Estate after seeing my photos and really wanted to have her wedding there. But obviously, they were booked up. I know this is crazy, she said between sobs, but is there any way you and James would consider switching your date? Maybe to next year? I know it's a huge ask, but Grammy Ruth is Derek's only living grandparent and it would mean the world to him. I felt terrible for Derek's grandmother, I really did. But I explained to Vanessa that switching was basically impossible. We'd already sent out save the dates, people had booked travel, we'd have to rebook every single vendor, and we'd lose our deposit. Plus, the venue was booked for over a year after our date. We'd have to wait until late next year at the earliest. I understand, she said quietly. It was worth asking. I just really hoped you'd help me out, you know, since we're sisters. The guilt trip was classic Vanessa, but I held firm. James and I had worked too hard on planning our wedding to just hand it over. I suggested she look at other venues or consider having a smaller ceremony sooner and a bigger reception later. She said she'd figure something out and got off the phone. I should have known she wasn't going to let it go. A week later, my mom called me. Honey, I need to talk to you about Vanessa's situation. Here we go, I thought. Mom explained that Vanessa was really struggling with wedding planning and was heartbroken about the Magnolia estate. She'd apparently driven Derek out there, and he'd loved it too, and now nothing else compared. Mom wondered if maybe, just maybe, James and I could be the bigger people and let Vanessa have our date. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, we've been planning this for months. We've put down deposits, people have made plans. Why can't Vanessa find her own venue? Because she wants this one, sweetie. And Derek's grandmother is sick, I know. That's really sad, but it doesn't mean we should give up our wedding. My mom got quiet, then said something that made my blood boil. You know your sister has always been more sensitive than you. She really needs this. More sensitive? Vanessa? The woman who'd once told a girl in high school her boyfriend was cheating on her just to swoop in and date him herself? That Vanessa? I told my mom that our answer was no, and I'd appreciate it if everyone would respect our decision. She sighed like I was being difficult and said she'd try to help Vanessa cope. The next week, my dad called. Then my aunt. Then my grandmother. All saying basically the same thing. Couldn't I just be flexible? Wasn't family more important than a date? Didn't I care about Derek's dying grandmother? I felt like I was going insane. Why was I the bad guy for wanting to keep my own wedding date? James was furious on my behalf. He called it what it was, manipulation and boundary stomping. He suggested we have a family meeting to address this once and for all. So we did. We invited my parents, Vanessa, and Derek to brunch at a nice restaurant downtown. James and I had prepared what we wanted to say. We'd be calm, clear, and firm. Our wedding date was not available, period, but we'd love to help Vanessa find alternatives. Vanessa showed up in tears. Before James or I could even start talking, she launched into this whole speech about how hurt she was, how she couldn't believe her own sister would be so selfish, how all she wanted was one special day. Derek sat there looking uncomfortable. My parents looked at me like I was the villain in a Disney movie. I'm pregnant, Vanessa suddenly announced. We were waiting to tell everyone, but I'm pregnant, and I wanted to get married before I start showing. But I guess my sister's aesthetic is more important than her niece or nephew being able to look at wedding photos one day without seeing their mom with a baby bump. The table went silent. My first thought, I'm ashamed to admit, wasn't congratulations. It was, she's lying. I don't know why I thought that, maybe intuition, maybe just years of watching Vanessa manipulate situations, but every instinct I had said this was fake. But what could I say? If I called her a liar and she was actually pregnant, I'd look like a monster. If I didn't, I'd be pressured into giving up my wedding. My mom started crying happy tears. My dad was hugging Vanessa. Derek looked shocked, which struck me as odd. Shouldn't he have known his fiancée was pregnant? Congratulations, I managed to say. That's wonderful news. But Vanessa, our wedding is still 3 months away. You won't even be showing by then. And our wedding doesn't prevent you from having yours. The venue only has one date available before your wedding, she said, tears streaming down her face. 3 weeks from now. But all our vendors are booked that day because they're working your wedding first and planning around your schedule. If you'd just move your date, Derek and I could take the sooner one, and you could have September 14th next year. This was insane. This was absolutely insane. She'd clearly planned this whole thing. James squeezed my hand under the table. I'm sorry, but no. We're not moving our wedding. The brunch went downhill from there. Vanessa called me heartless. My mom said she was disappointed in the woman I'd become. My dad stayed quiet. Derek looked like he wanted to disappear. We left without dessert. On the drive home, I told James about my suspicion that Vanessa wasn't actually pregnant. He admitted he'd thought the same thing, especially given Derek's reaction. But what could we do? We decided to just move forward with our plans and try to ignore the family pressure. Then, 2 days later, I got a call from the Magnolia estate. "Hi, this is Rebecca from Magnolia. I'm calling because we've received a request from a Vanessa Mitchell to transfer your wedding date to her. She said you'd approved this? I just wanted to confirm before we do any paperwork." My heart dropped into my stomach. "Absolutely not. We have not approved anything. Our date is not available for transfer." Rebecca sounded relieved. "Okay, good." She was very insistent and mentioned she'd already sent us payment to cover the transfer fees and the difference in your deposit. She also said something about her sister graciously offering to let her take the date due to a family emergency. I wanted to make sure this was legitimate before we processed anything. Vanessa had tried to steal our venue. She'd actually called them, made up a story, and tried to take our date out from under us. I was shaking with rage. "Please make a note in your files that only James Harper or I are authorized to make any changes to our booking. No one else, regardless of what they claim." Rebecca assured me she would and apologized for the confusion. The second I hung up, I called Vanessa. "What the hell were you thinking?" She played innocent at first, claiming she'd only called to inquire about the transfer process. When I told her I knew exactly what she'd done, she switched tactics. "You're really going to do this? You're really going to make me find another venue when I'm pregnant and stressed and you have the exact date I need?" "You're not pregnant," I said. The words came out before I could stop them. Silence. Then, "How dare you? How dare you accuse me of lying about something like that? Then prove it. Show me a pregnancy test. Show me an ultrasound. Prove it, Vanessa." She started screaming about invasion of privacy and how I was a horrible person and how she'd never forgive me. Then she hung up. Within an hour, I had texts from my entire family calling me vile, disgusting, and cruel for accusing a pregnant woman of lying. My mom said she didn't raise me to be this person. My dad said I owed Vanessa an apology. Even my younger cousin, who barely knew the situation, sent me a message saying I should be ashamed. James held me while I cried. This was supposed to be the happiest time of our lives, and my sister had turned it into a nightmare. But I wasn't backing down. Something was wrong with Vanessa's story, and I was going to prove it. I called Derek. He didn't answer. I texted him asking if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us, to talk. He agreed. We met at a Starbucks near his office the next day. Derek looked exhausted. Before I could even ask anything, he said, "She's not pregnant, is she?" I stared at him. "You don't know." He ran his hands through his hair. "I don't know what to think anymore. She showed me a positive pregnancy test, but she won't go to the doctor. She says she wants to wait until the second trimester because she had a miscarriage before we met and she's scared. But something feels off." My heart broke for him. "Derek, I think she's faking this to get my wedding venue." He looked miserable. "I've been worried about that. But if I accuse her and I'm wrong, what kind of fiancé does that make me? What if she really is pregnant and I've just destroyed her trust?" We talked for over an hour. Derek admitted that Vanessa had been obsessed with my wedding since the moment I got engaged. She'd looked at all my Pinterest boards, asked a million questions about our plans, and had mentioned multiple times how jealous she was of the Magnolia estate. When he proposed, she immediately started talking about having a better wedding than mine. "I love her," Derek said quietly, "but I'm starting to wonder if I really know her." I felt awful for him, but I also saw an opportunity. "Would you be willing to ask her to go to a doctor's appointment? Just a regular checkup? If she's really pregnant, it would be good for her and the baby anyway." Derek agreed to try. 3 days later, he called me. "She refuses. She got angry when I suggested it and accused me of not trusting her. She said the stress I'm causing isn't good for the baby." He paused. "I'm starting to think you're right. Here's where I probably made a mistake, but I was desperate." I suggested that Derek tell Vanessa he'd scheduled a surprise appointment with a highly recommended OB/GYN as a gift, and that he'd love to go with her to see the baby for the first time. If she was really pregnant, she'd probably be touched. If she wasn't, she'd have to either come clean or find a way out. Derek was hesitant but agreed. He scheduled an appointment at a clinic I recommended, where I knew the staff from hospital connections, and told Vanessa about it that evening. According to Derek, she freaked out. She said she already had her own doctor, she didn't want to switch, and she felt like he was being controlling. When he pressed gently, saying he just wanted to be involved and support her. She accused him of treating her like a liar. "Unless you're saying you don't believe I'm pregnant," she'd apparently said. Derek, to his credit, stood his ground. "I just want to see our baby, Vanessa. Is that so wrong?" She'd stormed out and spent the night at our parents' house. The next day, I got a call from my mom. "I don't know what you said to Derek, but you've caused major problems in Vanessa's relationship. She's having a stress breakdown, and the doctor says stress can cause miscarriages. If something happens to that baby, it's on you." I wanted to scream. Instead, I calmly asked, "What doctor? Has Vanessa been to a doctor?" My mom got defensive. "She's made appointments. She's being responsible. Not that it's any of your business. If she's been to appointments, surely she has ultrasound photos? Could I see them? I'd love to see my future niece or nephew." Mom went quiet. I'll ask her. She never sent me any photos. Meanwhile, our wedding was now 6 weeks away. Despite the family drama, planning continued. Our invitations had gone out, our SVPs were coming back, and everything was falling into place beautifully. James and I had decided to just tune out my family's noise and focus on our relationship and our future. Then Vanessa sent out her own save the dates. For September 21st. 1 week after our wedding. At a venue called the Rose Garden, which was actually beautiful but significantly cheaper than the Magnolia Estate. She also announced her pregnancy on Facebook with a long post about how excited she and Derek were to start their family, and how they couldn't wait to celebrate their love with a wedding despite facing unexpected family obstacles during planning. The comments were full of people congratulating her and a few asking what obstacles she meant. My cousin messaged me. "Did you guys work things out about the venue?" I explained that no, Vanessa had simply found her own venue, as we'd suggested from the start. But apparently, Vanessa had been telling people that I'd refused to accommodate her pregnancy and had been unsupportive during this difficult time. I was painted as the villain in a story I hadn't even agreed to be part of. The week before our wedding, during our rehearsal dinner, Vanessa showed up uninvited. She was wearing a loose dress and had her hand on her stomach in that way pregnant women do. She approached me in front of all our guests, James's family, our wedding party, everyone. "I just wanted to come and wish you well," she said sweetly. "I know we've had our differences, but you're my sister, and I love you. I'm sorry I won't be at your wedding, but Derek and I need to focus on the baby and our own wedding planning. I hope you understand." She hadn't been invited to the rehearsal dinner. She'd crashed it to make herself look magnanimous and make me look petty. I could see the confusion on people's faces. My maid of honor, my best friend Katie, looked ready to physically remove Vanessa. James's mom whispered something to his dad, clearly wondering what was going on. "Thank you for stopping by," I said as calmly as I could manage. "I hope you and Derek have a wonderful wedding." She smiled, hugged me, I stood stiff as a board, and left. The rest of the rehearsal was overshadowed by questions. "Why isn't your sister in the wedding? Is she really pregnant? What happened between you two?" I gave non-answers and tried to redirect, but the damage was done. Vanessa had successfully planted seeds of doubt about me among my own wedding guests. That night, Katie stayed over at my place. "You need to do something about her," she said. "This is getting ridiculous." "Like what? Everyone thinks I'm the bad guy already. Then prove she's lying. You're a nurse. You have connections. Figure it out." She was right, but I was so tired. My wedding was in 2 days. I just wanted to get through it and start my life with James. Our wedding day arrived, and it was perfect. The weather was beautiful, sunny but not too hot, with a light breeze that made the Spanish moss sway romantically. The ceremony was at 4 p.m. in the chapel, and everything went off without a hitch. I cried when I saw James at the altar. He cried when I walked down the aisle. Our vows were personal and heartfelt. The reception was a blast. The food was amazing, the music was perfect, and our first dance was something out of a movie. For those few hours, I forgot about Vanessa completely. But then my aunt pulled me aside during the reception. "I just want you to know," she said quietly, "I think Vanessa is full of it. I've been pregnant 3 times, and something about her whole story doesn't add up. But your mother won't hear it." My uncle overheard and added, "That girl has always been trouble. I love her, she's family, but she's trouble." It was vindicating to hear, but also sad. My own wedding day, and we were talking about my sister's schemes instead of just celebrating. James and I left for our honeymoon in Italy the next morning, and for 2 blissful weeks, I didn't think about Vanessa, my parents, or any of the drama. We explored Rome, Florence, and the Amalfi Coast. We ate incredible food, drank amazing wine, and fell even more in love with each other. It was exactly what we needed. We got back home on a Tuesday. Vanessa's wedding was that Saturday. I'll admit, part of me wanted to skip it entirely. But James convinced me that showing up would be the high road. We'd go, we'd be polite, we'd give a modest gift, and we'd leave early. We wouldn't cause drama, we wouldn't confront anyone, we'd just be present and then move on with our lives. That plan lasted until about halfway through Vanessa's reception. The wedding itself was actually nice. The rose garden was pretty, the ceremony was standard, and Vanessa looked beautiful in her dress. Derek looked happy, though I noticed he seemed a bit nervous. Vanessa was definitely playing up the pregnancy, with her hand constantly on her still flat stomach and multiple mentions during the ceremony about their growing family. The reception was at the same venue, in a large tent on the lawn. There were about 100 guests, good food, and a decent DJ. Vanessa and Derek had their first dance, cut the cake, did all the traditional reception activities. I was actually starting to think we'd make it through the night without incident. Then came the toasts. Vanessa's maid of honor went first with a sweet speech about their friendship. Derek's best man did a funny toast with some embarrassing stories. Then my mom stood up. I wasn't planning to make a speech, she said into the microphone, but I just feel so moved by today. Vanessa, you've always been my little warrior. You go after what you want, and you don't let anything stand in your way. She looked directly at me when she said this. And now you're starting a family of your own. I'm so proud of you for overcoming the obstacles in your path and creating the wedding of your dreams, even when others weren't supportive. I felt James's hand tighten around mine under the table. Mom continued, and Derek, you're getting a wonderful woman. A strong woman who knows what she wants and fights for it. A woman who's already proving what an amazing mother she'll be. The guests clapped. I wanted to sink through the floor. Katie, who'd come as my +1, James was my husband now, so she needed her own invite, whispered, "This is unbelievable." After dinner, I went to the restroom to collect myself. When I came out, I literally bumped into Derek in the hallway outside the bathrooms. "Hey," he said. "I'm glad you came." "Of course. Congratulations." He looked around to make sure we were alone, then said quietly, "She's not pregnant." I froze. "What? She's not pregnant?" "She never was. I found the fake test in her drawer when she was in the shower 2 days ago. One of those novelty ones you can buy online. I confronted her last night." He looked devastated. "She broke down and admitted everything. The pregnancy, the venue situation, all of it. She just wanted to compete with you. She wanted a wedding that was better than yours, sooner than yours, and she thought faking a pregnancy would get everyone on her side." I didn't know what to say. I mean, I'd suspected, obviously, but hearing it confirmed was surreal. "Why did you still marry her?" I asked. "I love her," he said simply. "And she swore it was a one-time mistake, that she panicked when she saw how perfect your wedding was shaping up, and she made stupid decisions. She promised to tell everyone the truth after the wedding. She's planning to say she miscarried." He ran his hand over his face. "I know I'm probably an idiot, but I'm hoping we can work through this." I felt terrible for him. "Derek, I'm so sorry. This is a lot. I know. Look, I probably shouldn't have told you, but I felt like you deserved to know you were right. And I'm sorry for my part in all of this. I should have pushed harder for the truth from the beginning." We stood there in awkward silence for a moment, then Derek went back to the reception. I stood in that hallway trying to process what I'd just learned. Vanessa had faked a pregnancy. She'd manipulated our entire family, caused months of stress and drama, painted me as a villain, and all for what? To one-up me? To win some imaginary competition? I walked back into the reception in a daze. I found James and told him everything Derek had just revealed. His eyes went wide. "What do you want to do?" he asked. And here's where I made the decision that I'm still not sure was the right one, but in the moment, it felt justified. "I want everyone to know the truth." Katie overheard and leaned in. "I'm listening." I explained the situation to her, and she got this look on her face that I can only describe as righteous fury. Oh, we're doing this. We're absolutely doing this. Doing what? Exposing her. Right now. At her own reception. James looked uncertain. Are you sure? This is going to cause a massive scene. I thought about the last 6 months. The manipulation, the lies, the way my own parents had turned on me, the way Vanessa had crashed my rehearsal dinner, the passive-aggressive toast my mom had just given. I thought about Derek, who'd just married a woman who'd lied to him about being pregnant, and who was planning to fake a miscarriage to cover her tracks. I'm sure. Katie and I hatched a quick plan. She'd create a distraction, and I'd get to the DJ booth and grab the microphone. We'd need to move fast before anyone could stop us. Katie went up to the bar and accidentally knocked over an entire tray of champagne glasses. They shattered spectacularly, and everyone turned to look, including Vanessa and my parents. In the chaos, I slipped over to the DJ booth. I need the mic, I told the DJ. Emergency speech. He looked confused but handed it over. By the time anyone realized what was happening, I was already talking. Hi everyone, sorry to interrupt. I'm the bride's sister, and I just wanted to say a few words. Vanessa's face went white. She started walking toward me, but she was on the opposite side of the tent. My heart was pounding, but I kept going. I've been thinking a lot about family lately. About honesty, trust, and what we owe to the people we love. And I realized I owe all of you the truth. Stop, Vanessa said, but she was still too far away, and the music had stopped, so everyone was listening to me. My sister told us all that she was pregnant. She used that pregnancy to try to take my wedding venue, to manipulate our family, and to paint me as unsupportive and cruel when I wouldn't give up my wedding date. I looked directly at Vanessa, who had stopped walking and was just standing there, frozen. But she's not pregnant. She never was. She faked the whole thing. The tent erupted. People were gasping, talking over each other, looking between me and Vanessa in shock. My mom was on her feet, shouting at me to stop. My dad looked confused. Derek had his head in his hands. Vanessa was crying, but not sad tears. Angry tears. You're a liar. You're trying to ruin my wedding because you're jealous. Am I? Because your husband just told me the truth. He found your fake pregnancy test. You already confessed to him. So either tell everyone the truth right now, or I'll have Derek do it. All eyes turned to Derek. He looked absolutely miserable, but after a long moment, he nodded slowly. It's true, he said quietly. She's not pregnant. The tent exploded again. Vanessa was screaming at Derek, at me, at everyone. My mom was crying. Several guests were filming on their phones. Vanessa's friends were gathered around her, looking shocked and confused. My aunt, the one who'd suspected the truth all along, was standing with her arms crossed, looking vindicated. I handed the microphone back to the DJ and walked out of the tent with James and Katie. We left the venue and went straight home. My phone started blowing up immediately. Texts, calls, voicemails, everything. My mom left me a message calling me evil and saying I was no longer welcome in her home. My dad sent a text saying we needed to talk about my behavior. Vanessa sent me a string of messages that I won't repeat but that were essentially saying I'd ruined her life and she'd never forgive me. But I also got messages from Derek, thanking me for forcing the truth out. From my aunt and uncle, saying they were proud of me for standing up for myself. From several cousins who said they'd suspected something was off. Even from a few of Vanessa's friends who said they appreciated knowing the truth. That night, James held me while I cried. Not because I regretted what I'd done, but because the reality of losing my family was hitting me. My parents had chosen Vanessa's lies over my truth. They'd believed her manipulations over my honesty. And that hurt more than I can describe. The next morning, the story was all over Facebook. Multiple people had posted videos of my speech and Vanessa's meltdown. It was messy, it was ugly, and it was public. Vanessa had temporarily deactivated her social media accounts. My parents weren't answering my calls. But Derek reached out. He and Vanessa had spent the night in separate hotel rooms. They'd talked that morning, and he'd told her he needed space to think about whether he could move forward with the marriage. He'd gone to stay with his parents for a while. 3 days later, Derek called to tell me he was filing for an annulment. Vanessa had admitted that she'd been planning to fake a miscarriage in a few weeks and had even looked up how to make it convincing. She'd also admitted that her obsession with my wedding had become unhealthy, and she'd made a series of increasingly bad decisions trying to compete with me. Derek said he couldn't trust her anymore and couldn't build a life with someone who'd lie about something so serious. I felt terrible for him, but I also felt vindicated. I'd been right all along. 2 weeks after the reception disaster, my dad finally called me. He said he and my mom had been doing a lot of thinking. They'd talked to Vanessa, who'd admitted everything to them as well. They were disappointed in her, but they were also disappointed in how I'd handled the situation. You could have come to us privately, Dad said. You didn't need to humiliate your sister in front of everyone. I reminded him that I had come to them, multiple times, and they'd chosen not to believe me. I'd asked Vanessa to prove her pregnancy, and she'd refused. I'd tried to handle it privately, and no one would listen. What did you expect me to do? I asked. Just let her keep lying? Let her fake a miscarriage and get away with all of it? Dad didn't have a good answer for that. He said they needed time to process everything and that maybe family therapy would be a good idea down the line. I agreed, though I wasn't holding my breath. As for Vanessa, I haven't spoken to her since the reception. She sent me one email about a month afterward, saying she was sorry for everything and asking if we could talk. I wasn't ready. So I didn't respond. Maybe one day I will be, but not yet. It's been 4 months since everything imploded. James and I are doing great. We're settled into married life, we've been working on making our house feel like a home, and we're planning a trip to Japan next year. My relationship with my parents is still strained, but we're trying. We have dinner once a month, and we're slowly rebuilding trust. My aunt and uncle and I have gotten closer, which has been nice. They've essentially stepped into the role my parents should have played, being supportive and loving without judgment. Katie is still my best friend and has taken to calling herself the hero of the champagne distraction. As for whether I regret exposing Vanessa at her reception, honestly, I go back and forth. Part of me wishes I'd handled it differently, maybe confronted her privately after the wedding. But part of me knows that nothing would have changed. She would have faked the miscarriage, everyone would have felt sorry for her, and I'd still be the villain in the family narrative. At least now the truth is out there. Derek is doing okay, from what I hear. The annulment went through, and he's been in therapy. He sent me a thank you card last month, saying that as painful as everything was, he was grateful to know the truth before he had kids or bought a house with Vanessa. He's apparently dating someone new, someone he knew from college, and he seems happy. Vanessa moved to Atlanta for a fresh start. She got a new job and, according to my mom, is also in therapy. I hope she really is working on herself. Despite everything, she's still my sister, and I don't wish bad things for her. I just can't have her in my life right now. If there's anything I've learned from this whole mess, it's that family dynamics are complicated, that people are capable of shocking behavior when they're insecure, and that standing up for yourself sometimes means accepting that relationships will change or end. Someone asked me the other day if I'd do anything differently, knowing what I know now. Honestly? Maybe I would have pushed harder for proof earlier, or maybe I would have just eloped and avoided all the drama. But I also know that Vanessa's issues aren't my fault or my responsibility. She made her choices, and I made mine. James says I'm one of the strongest people he knows, which makes me laugh because I definitely didn't feel strong during any of this. I felt confused, hurt, angry, and betrayed. But I guess strength isn't about not feeling those things. It's about feeling them and still standing up for yourself anyway. Our first anniversary is coming up next month. We're going back to Charleston Harbor for another sunset boat tour, just the two of us, to remember why we started this journey in the first place. Not for the venue, not for the perfect photos, not to compete with anyone. Just because we love each other and want to build a life together. And honestly, that's all that really matters. I know this story doesn't have a neat, tied up with a bow ending. Vanessa and I might reconcile someday, or we might not. My parents and I are working on our relationship, but it might never be what it was. Derek is moving forward with his life, and so is Vanessa. And James and I are happy, building our future one day at a time. If you're reading this and you're dealing with a manipulative family member, my advice is this: trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Set boundaries and stick to them, even when people try to guilt you into backing down. And know that it's okay to prioritize your own well-being and happiness, even if it disappoints people you love. Also, maybe reconsider exposing people at their weddings. I mean, it worked out for me in a weird way, but I can't exactly recommend it as a conflict resolution strategy. Then again, would I do it again? After everything I've been through, after all the lies and manipulation and family drama? Yeah. I probably would. Because some truths need to be told, even if they're messy. Especially if they're messy. Thanks for reading this absolute novel. I know it was long, but there was just so much to unpack. If anyone has questions or wants updates, I'll try to respond when I can. And if anyone is currently planning a wedding, I wish you all the joy and none of the drama that I experienced. And if your sister tries to steal your venue, maybe just elope.